A new Australian documentary is releasing in cinemas on October 17th, a film called Like My Brother. And a fascinating story about four First Nations women trying to play football in the big leagues. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer and co-director of Like My Brother, Sal Balharrie. Sal, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's just a delight to be chatting with you today.
Well, great to talk to you. And this is such an intriguing documentary about these four women and their attempts to be part of the AFLW. Tell me about how it all came about.
Well, I guess the first of all, I grew up in a footy family, mad football family. My dad played footy. He was a coach. It was the glue of our family. My uncle played for Essendon Football Club. So football's kind of, in my DNA. I loved kicking a footy as a kid, and obviously girls didn't play footy when I, go on to play footy. So but I have a very strong understanding and a deep love of the game, deep love of all sport. And on the 3rd of February 2017, my son came home and said, "Hey, Mum, will you drive me across town to the footy?" And I was like, "Hey, mate, it's the middle of summer. What are you talking about? What footy's on?" And he said, "Well, it's the first AFLW game." And I actually, it was quite funny, Peter, because I said, "Oh, look, it's stinking hot. Who's going to be going to this game?" And he said, "Oh, that is so disappointing." I said, "Why is that so disappointing?" He said, "Because you've raised me to be a feminist." I said, "Get in the car, we're going." So we drove across town. We took a couple of his mates, and what I witnessed was something so exciting, something so incredibly new, something so fresh. And it was so interesting watching the young guys watching this game. And it wasn't an oddity. It was something that, why has it taken so long to happen? But as I sat there watching this game, this sport, I always also was sort of struck by how extraordinarily white the game was. And as a storyteller, I am drawn to stories of social justice, but I think much more stories of social equity and access. And so I sat there and I thought, actually conceived of the title, Like My Brother. What's it going to take for these girls to end up just like their brothers? What's it going to take for them to end up on the field of play? And here we are, 7 years later.
What an interesting backstory to creating this documentary, Sal. That's really interesting. So tell me about putting it all together. How did you find these four Tiwi Islander women and constructing the documentary?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to sign the idea very, very quickly, very early with a production company who, at that stage, this was pre-COVID. So there's really a film. There's filmmaking pre-COVID, and there's filmmaking post-COVID. So at this stage, we're 2018. We're very much pre-COVID, and I signed with a production company who said, "We're prepared to match whatever money you're prepared to put in." And I said, "Well, I'm prepared to put in some money, not a lot, but enough." To get us sort of a sizzle reel and to start to sort of be able to shop the idea around. And so I'm married to somebody who's a beautiful stills photographer, and he had actually visited the Tiwi Islands in 2017, documenting sport in the Tiwi. And what he was struck by was how the girls were on the sidelines. So what I was interested by as a storyteller was, obviously obstacles, conflict. And so if you talk about tyranny of distance, as far as like a story that's about girls playing sport, you go the furthest away from the from the glass house. And that was the Tiwi Islands. So I jumped on a plane. We literally, myself and a cameraman, jumped on a plane and arrived in the Tiwi. And Peter, what was so amazing was that, I was very nervous about whether or not we would be welcome, whether or not we would be able to, this was pretty much a sort of a mission to just go and shake hands and say hi and start the conversations. But seriously, we were invited to film the girls' training session, and that training those moments of Rena coming down to the Oval wearing sunglasses, they're in the film. You know, those very, very, very first days made it into the film. So and from there, so things rolled. The footy story was the easy story to tell. The pre-COVID story was the easy story. And I actually, in sort of, full filmmaker arrogance, thought that I would have a story made in 18 months, 2 years tops. And, and then things started to happen. COVID happened. Um, Parted ways with the production company, really amicably, but they were unable to continue on during COVID. None of us were really, we didn't know where we were at, and the girls' lives started to derail. But I think at that stage, that was when I thought, hang on a minute, this story is getting very interesting. This story is actually so much bigger than a football story. This is actually a Trojan horse here that we can actually, I think the start of the film was about who dares to dream and what does it take to have a dream. And the second part of the story really becomes about redefining success. What does it take to walk proudly in two worlds for any one of us, both white and black, people? It's not about it's about just as much about me as a filmmaker, what it takes for me to walk proudly in the Tiwi, which is respect and understanding and those kinds of things. So we did a big pivot, and I had all the rights assigned back to me, and I went straight to the Tiwi guys and said, will you guys help me make this film? Will you guys come on board? Because now this film is getting so much more than football. Now we're stepping into culture. I met Danielle McLean as a writing on a show in 2017. We were both writing on a children's show, kids show. And I'd been badgering her to come on board this film with me, knowing full well that any piece that was shot in community, I would need an Indigenous filmmaker beside me, with me, leading that aspect of the story.
Uh-huh. And okay, so let's talk about the progression with the focus on the four women in particular, young women, and their stories, and how much did they need prompting and so on to tell their stories, and how much permission did they give about what they were able to talk about?
We're kind of blessed as filmmakers to be engaging with young people at this time because they're so savvy. These girls, before TikTok was called Musically. And so when I first met the girls, they spent all their time making rap songs on Musically, recording themselves, sharing themselves. They all want to be rappers. So they were very camera ready. They were very camera savvy. In saying that, there was, of course, a series, really strong as a group, and individuals much more quiet and reluctant. It's really funny in the film. There's a scene where the girls are on a tram in Melbourne, and Frida sort of laughs and looks up, and we've got a song playing over that piece, and I'm not sure. I think the teacher Ree was mic'd. The girls weren't mic'd at that stage, but apparently they're saying, and I'll have to go back and check the footages, but can they get that bloody possum out of my face? Because they call the boom a boom mic, a possum. So it was all a bit of fun. And the funny thing about it was when I first went to Tiwi, I think the guys thought, oh, we're just doing something, the ABC drops in and out. But I just kept showing up, and I just kept going back, and I kept going back, 14 times. And so I think the biggest thing is that we formed these incredible friendships, and it just became like hanging out with your friends. Of course, I'm very mindful of not taking that for granted, because in the early days before COVID, we were filming young women who were, young teenage girls. They were all still at school. So everything had to go through the school. Everything had to go through Tammy and Tiki, who were guardians, carers, so to speak, for the girls.
Uh-huh. How very, very interesting. And tell me about constructing the rest of the documentary, finding other people to talk to, the footage that you shot in various places, and so on, because there's a fair bit going on in this film.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? You kind of go where the story's leading you, and then and I mean, Peter, it's really, I mean, we've got 400 hours of footage. So the just to talk slightly about the sort of actual process of making the story, there were so many interviews, 50 interviews, over 50 interviews actually. I mean, I've got 900 pages of transcriptions. You know, it was such a difficult process, and I was incredibly fortunate to work, Danielle and I, with Uri Mizrahi, who's a very well-known documentary editor, and Uri really helped us unearth that story out of the 400 hours.
Mm.
And we had 20 weeks of edit with Uri to really get a rough cut. And so we were trying to uh, I was very mindful I didn't want to have a white savior. I didn't want to have, you know, that was something that was really important to me. I really wanted to make sure that we had a lot of agency within the girls' choices, because they did make a lot of choices, and I didn't want them to feel powerless because they had decided, you know, it's a highly manipulative art form, documentary.
Mm.
And you know, what we choose to leave out is equally is as important as what ends up on screen. And
Mm.
so Danielle and I, we have a really fabulous shorthand way of working together. And so we really, I mean, we had our rough cut, and then we decided that we needed a, a slightly faster paced, sort of a different vibe for the fine cut. So we introduced a new editor to the film for the fine cut, and that was really interesting process to bring fresh eyes in at that stage as well. So we were going from sort of 4 hours to 90 minutes at that stage. And we started then to really, really break down, both being, you know, writers, we really wanted to look at it as a 3 act structure. And that was actually, I was always really hell bent on it having a really fine setup and payoff. I wanted people to feel that they'd really got to know the girls over time, but also to feel a reward for going on the journey, you know, for the patience of going on the journey with the girls.
Mm.
And so it took a very long time to find that ending, a very, very long time. And there's a beautiful story about how we found that ending. But so we had our 3 act structure. We then had a, you know, I like to give an audience eyes into the story. So we, from that point of view, it was very important that we took off the table very early that this was an unrealistic view, that this was something that could be achieved. And so we had a voice of reason with Charlie King, gorgeous man who comes in with that beautiful voice, just so grounded, so patient. And then we wanted a voice that really said, you know what, that these girls, somebody's got their back. And that was very much Nana. So Nana was, I mean, and I'm sure you'll agree, Nana is just, oh my God, it's so amazing the amount of people who have like, can Nana have a spin-off? Can we do a spin-off just of Nana? She's such a fantastic character. And then Tiki, who's actually one of our co-producers, she becomes the sort of the guardian, the touch to country, um, and a more contemporary sort of a next generation Nana, so to speak. And then we've of course got our girls, and how what each girl stood for in the writers' room was, you know, Rena's the one who just wants to have fun, and Frida is the workhorse, and Jess is the sort of the mature one, and Juliana is the one who's trying to make her father proud. And so also very mindful that following 4 stories is a lot. for people to do over 90 minutes. And so we really weren't worried about any individual story standing out more than others, that they can almost stand in for one girl because they are representing a generation of girls.
Yes.
And so that was really how we sort of tackled the writing room. I loved it. I love writers' rooms. I love finding story and unearthing story. I mean, that's what I love being out shooting stuff as well. But boy, to actually have everything, all your rushes logged, your rough cut done, then the work starts, and it's so rewarding.
Oh, excellent to hear all that, and such a an intricate process that you went through for the film, Like My Brother. Tell me, how did the four young women, four girls, react to seeing themselves in the final cut of the film, and other audiences who have already seen the film?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Peter, because we've had I mean we've had the dream run into our release. We had our world premiere at MIF, we've been to Cinefest, we've been to Darwin. I've just come back from Alice Springs. We're at South by Southwest next week, and then we open on October 17 across Australia, 100 plus cinemas. So I mean it's this tiny little film with this tiny little team is achieving some big things. But gosh, it was so interesting at MIF. I sat beside Rena. We had a screening at the Kino, and I sat beside Rena, and her legs were jiggling. She was just a bundle of nerves. And I put my hand on her leg, and I was just like, Rena, it's okay. I'm here. It's okay. And you're amazing, sort of thing. And then as I sat beside her, she sort of slumped in her seat, and I slumped down beside her as well. And we were both sitting there and we're having a bit of a giggle. And then we lost ourselves in the story. We lost ourselves in the film. But she lost herself. She's somebody who's extraordinarily present. So if she's watching a film, she is 100% watching a film. And I know that about her. So as I was sitting there beside her, I was suddenly watching the film through her eyes. And my goodness, I was struck by what a huge thing I'd asked of this young woman to, what 22, 23-year-old looks back at their 17, 16-year-old self and isn't slightly cringing. But these young women are so extraordinary, but they've also been an extraordinary part of the making of the film themselves. So there were no surprises at all. They were taken, they were across everything. What was probably the most important part was the viewing of the rough cut in community with their families, particularly the grandmothers and elders. And then from there, the girls sitting and we did a writer's workshop to actually develop their voiceovers with their grandmothers, with the elders. And they also attended the voiceover sessions. So the girls were in the booth and people were coming and going and working on their scripts. But, that was, for me, that was amazing that Danielle sat with the girls, Tammy and Tiki sat with the girls. They did the writing. I didn't actually hear any of the voiceover. I didn't read any of the voiceover, sorry, on the page until the girls were in the booth. And then, so I was just looking at the authenticity of the girls' voices to vision, but the words were theirs. So, when Rena says, sometimes I have to remind myself to be a strong Tiwi woman, we are so far from home. Now, if I had have read those words on the page, I would have thought, gosh, that's slightly on the nose. But with her intonation and the way in which she said it in the booth, and I'm getting goosebumps actually, they're really her words. And so it was such a collaborative way of seeing and being and feeling and making. It was incredible. So no surprises. The girls have very much been part of the film. I think one of the most extraordinary things, and the whole team would agree with this because we can't stop talking about it, was when we screened, we were the opening night at the Darwin International Film Festival, which was so amazing. And at the end of that, at the end of the night, or the end of the screening, sorry, Pirawani Purantata Mary, who's the elder who talks us through the Pukamani ceremony in the film, and he's a very important Tiwi elder. He and I went onto stage. I invited the girls up on stage, and he invited the families to come and stand in front of the stage. And he would explain to the audience each girl's totem, each girl's dreaming, and the family would stand and dance the dreaming and the totem for each one of those girls. And so, whilst it was interesting because they were actually dancing with their backs to the audience, but the audience was actually watching something so special because it was the families celebrating the girls,
Mm.
and this was just an impromptu, amazing, amazing moment. And Rena, as she says in the film, her dreaming is Black Whip Snake. So as her family stood up to dance that totem, that dreaming for her, she actually jumped off the stage and just started dancing with them. Totally, once again, losing herself in the moment. Now we're dancing. So I just think it's been such and may it continue to be such a incredible celebration of culture and a cultural exchange. And that brings me to what the audiences are telling us. It's just, and it's so amazing, when you have people from Darwin coming up and saying, I had no idea I've learned so much. And in saying that, I don't want to make documentaries so people learn so much. I want it to be osmosis, that people go, wow, that was so joyful. I feel so happy. And those girls are so incredible. Wow. And that's the response I get, and that I love.
That is absolutely fascinating, and the interactivity between film and presentation and audience. So interesting to hear all that. I'm wondering if the AFL has seen the film.
Yes, the AFL has definitely seen the film. Um, a very prominent person from the AFL came up to me after the screening and said, we need to do a lot better. And so if that's what we achieve,
Mm.
we're all very, very happy. Um, and yet, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in the film, Tiki says if the girls want to play AFL, they've got to step up a bit. I think everyone just has to step up a bit, and step up a bit, not assuming that they have the answers. Sometimes stepping up is knowing when to be quiet and to not fill the room with answers. And that's kind of equally intriguing. Tomorrow night, I have the first screening with an actual AFLW team. Tomorrow night, we're screening to the Hawthorn Football Club.
Ah,
And yeah, so that's going to be, we've got like 300 people from AFLW. Um, so we're in word of mouth mode is the sort of is the suggestion, is the feeling. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night.
oh, terrific. I like that process, and I'd be interested to what sort of reaction they have, which I'm sure will be positive. So that's fantastic. Now, it's great to have a distributor so that the film releases nationally October 17th, like My Brother we're talking about, and it's Mushroom, isn't it, who have picked up the film,
Yeah,
which
yes, it
is great.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, how, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to explain how extraordinarily grateful I am for the support of that team. And also the freedom. The guys saw the rough cut in November last year. So at that stage, I'm pretty sure it was 2 hours, 40 minutes. I think that, yeah, it was 2:40. And their notes were really, spot on. Um, Not extensive, but just really gut felt fabulous notes. So they are the most extraordinarily kind, collaborative, wonderful people. And I feel, we just feel like we're in really good hands. And yeah, they're incredibly ambitious, incredibly tireless workers, but very, very, very hands-on and really great communicators.
Excellent to hear all that. Look, congratulations on the film, Sal. It's a really interesting and incisive look at the hopes and dreams of these four Tiwi Island women and their ambitions and so on. It's yeah, I found it quite fascinating. And just finally, I just wanted to ask you, Sal, as you've mentioned, you've made other documentaries and so on. Are you working on another one at the moment?
Yeah, I am actually. I thought I wouldn't sort of start until next February, but yes, I am. And I also every time you finish something in doco, you swear you're never going to go back, and your friends go, you know. But God, I just love it, and I'm working on a film that celebrates a very little known, amazing woman from the 60s, an incredible cyclist. And we are recreating a race to not on it. Look, it's interesting. This woman was so amazing that she broke every single record that there was in the book. So she was banned from racing. The film's called, I won't even go there. I don't even feel comfortable talking about that. But yeah,
That's it.
there's another doco in the
Okay.
can, in the bank, in the mind. There's
That
another doco somewhere.
that is fair enough, and I fully understand that you don't want to spoil it by going
Yeah.
talking too much about something that's still in the works. So
Yeah,
no,
that's it. That's
that's fair
actually
enough.
it. Yeah.
Look, Sal, congratulations on the film, Like My Brother. We've been speaking to Sal Balharrie, who is the co-director and writer of this documentary, releasing nationally in Australia on October 17th. And Sal, I wish you well with the film and your upcoming film, and I hope it all goes well.
Peter, thank you very, very much. And I would really just love to finish by acknowledging and thanking the 76 philanthropists who funded the making of this film, because that in itself is worthy of a film. But I'm just really seeing this shift to individuals supporting filmmaking and supporting storytelling, and it's a really exciting shift in the landscape. And I am very much here because of it. And yeah, I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. But thank you very much for your response and your love and care of Like My Brother.
Pleasure, and great to hear the philanthropy behind the production. All of that's great news. Sal, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you very much.